If you didn't know this was Belgrade, you could easily think it's some small town somewhere in Hungary or Austria. Narrow cobblestone streets, colorful low-rise houses, red-tiled roofs, cozy little squares, and hardly any of the hustle and bustle you'd normally expect from Serbia's capital. And it's no surprise. For most of its history, Zemun wasn't a district of Belgrade at all, but an independent town. Separate, proud, with its own administration, its own coat of arms, and a character entirely its own. For centuries, this was where the border between two vast empires ran. On one side of the Sava River stood Ottoman Belgrade, on the other, Austrian Zemun. They were separated by just a few hundred meters of water. Yet politically, culturally, and architecturally, they were two completely different worlds. That remained the case until 1934, when Zemun was finally incorporated into Belgrade. Even today, many locals don't particularly like hearing it called a district. To longtime residents, it's still a town within a city. And once you find yourself here, it's easy to forget you're in a bustling capital at all. Instead, it feels like you've stepped into a much quieter place, where time seems to move just a little more slowly. From here, we'll make our way to Zemun's best-known landmark. In front of us are the Miodrag Dabižić steps, leading up to Gardoš Hill. These aren't just any stairs, they're an officially designated landmark. In 2021, the city of Belgrade named them after local historian, educator, and guardian of Zemun's heritage, Miodrag Dabižić, a man who spent decades painstakingly piecing together the history of his hometown. For many years, Dabižić served as director of the Zemun Heritage Museum, founded the Zemun Chamber Choir, and devoted his life to researching and preserving the town's legacy. He also left behind several books, including a monograph of the old Gardoš cemetery, where he himself was laid to rest in 2017. No wonder these steps bear his name. They lead to one of Zemun's most iconic landmarks, the Gardoš Tower. And today, they're considered the most scenic route to the top of the hill. The climb isn't particularly difficult, but there are enough steps to make you stop and look back more than once. And you definitely should. With every few dozen steps, the rooftops of Old Zemun sink a little lower, while the view grows even wider. Gradually, the Danube comes into sight, followed by the opposite riverbank and the modern neighborhoods of Belgrade. So don't rush, take your time, and look back often. The view is well worth it. Just a few more seconds and we'll reach Zemun's most iconic landmark. And here it is, the star of today's walk, Gardoš Tower, also known as the Millennium Tower or the Tower of Janko Sibinjanin, and each of those names has a story of its own. Despite its medieval appearance, Gardoš Tower is actually a relatively recent addition. It was built in 1896 to commemorate the 1000th anniversary of the Hungarian state. The tower was part of a much larger imperial project. 7 commemorative towers were erected across Austria-Hungary, and this one marked the empire's southernmost point. That's how it got its original name, the Millennium Tower. Its second name honors the Hungarian military commander John Hunyadi, better known in Serbia as Janko Sibinjanin, the very man who led the defense of Belgrade against the Ottomans in 1456. The tower doesn't stand here by chance. Beneath it lie the ruins of the medieval fortress of Taurunum, with only a few corner towers and scattered sections of its walls still surviving. Archaeologists also uncovered 2 remarkably well-preserved Roman burials from the 2nd and 3rd centuries AD. They were jokingly dubbed as the oldest Zemunians. Over the centuries, the fortress changed hands many times. It was ruled by the Hungarians, then the Ottomans, and later the Habsburgs. Each left its own mark, rebuilding the fortifications to meet the needs of the time. Today, only scattered sections of the old walls remain, but they're enough to remind us that the history of this place goes back much further than the tower itself. Inside, the tower still preserves its original spiral staircase from 1896. During the bombardment of Zemun in 1914, one of the interior staircases was destroyed, but the other survived. It's the very one visitors climb today. During the tower's restoration between 2006 and 2010, it was carefully restored along with the floors and the observation deck. Although the tower measures 18 meters in diameter, the interior at ground level is only about 6 meters across, making the climb surprisingly narrow and giving the whole experience the feel of a genuine medieval tower. Along the way, visitors pass several small landings before emerging onto a compact viewing terrace with panoramic views of Zemun, the Danube, and Belgrade. Once you step onto the observation deck, it becomes clear why this is considered the best viewpoint of Zemun. The panorama stretches across almost the entire district, the wide expanse of the Danube, Great War Island, and modern Belgrade on the opposite bank. On a clear day, it's the kind of view you can admire for hours, always discovering something you hadn't noticed before. By the way, turn around for a moment and look at the walls behind you. Almost every inch of the old masonry is covered with names, initials, and dates. Some were carved only recently, while others date back more than 100 years. Right beside modern signatures, you'll find inscriptions from the early 20th century, left by people who climbed these very stairs over a century ago. Today, many would call these inscriptions vandalism, but these old writings have become part of the tower's history. Every name is a small reminder of someone who once stood here, gazed across the Danube, and perhaps admired almost the very same view we see today. Over the past century, empires gave way to new states. Wars came and went, and the city continued to change. Yet these inscriptions remained as silent witnesses to the passage of time. Of course, that doesn't mean you should leave your own signature here today, but the old ones can certainly be seen as a unique chronicle to the tower's visitors. But Gardoš isn't the only reason people come here. As soon as you make your way back down the hill, you're greeted once again by narrow cobblestone streets, colorful old houses, and tucked-away courtyards, many of which have changed little over the last 100 years. This is where the real spirit of Zemun reveals itself. Quiet, unhurried, and worlds away from the bustle of central Belgrade. As you stroll through Old Zemun, you may notice something curious. There are almost no wide boulevards here. Most of the streets were laid out long before the arrival of cars, intended only for pedestrians, horse-drawn carriages, and small wagons. That's why they still feel so intimate, and just a little maze-like. Sometimes all you have to do is turn into the first little side street, and you'll suddenly find yourself in a quiet square, in front of a centuries-old house, or at a cozy family-run cafe. It's no coincidence that Zemun has long been regarded as one of Belgrade's most desirable places to live and visit. It's a favorite not only among tourists, but among Belgraders themselves, who come here to stroll along the riverside, enjoy a coffee with a view of the Danube, or dine at one of the area's many fish restaurants. With the river providing fresh fish for centuries, seafood has become a defining part of the local cuisine, and many of these restaurants have been welcoming guests for generations. In front of us is one of Zemun's most important Orthodox churches, the Church of St. Nicholas. The current building was constructed in the first half of the 18th century, shortly after Zemun came under the rule of the Austrian Empire. For the local Serbian community, this church became not only a place of worship, but also a cultural center, around which the life of the Orthodox community gradually developed. Throughout its history, the church has survived wars, changes of states, and shifting political eras, yet it has managed to preserve its original purpose. Inside, visitors can find a richly decorated Baroque iconostasis, along with numerous historic icons and pieces of churchware. This combination of Orthodox traditions and Central European artistic style is quite rare, and it reflects the history of Zemun itself, a town that for centuries stood at the crossroads of different cultures. Even if you're not particularly interested in architecture or religion, this church has an atmosphere of remarkable peace. Its thick walls almost completely block out the noise of the city, and within just a few seconds, you get the feeling that time moves differently here. Just around the corner is Zemun's central square, the true heart of the neighborhood, where everyday life has been unfolding for generations. People meet here, relax on benches, gather for local events, and fill the numerous cafes that line the square. Just nearby is the famous Zemun market. For tourists, it's another local attraction, but for residents, it's simply a place they visit to buy fresh vegetables, fruit, cheese, honey, homemade sausages, and other everyday products. If you want to experience not the polished side of Zemun, but its real everyday life, places like this reveal much more than any museum ever could. Nearby stands another Orthodox church, the Church of the Dormition of the Mother of God. Its history is also closely connected with the growth of Zemun's Serbian community in the 18th century. From the outside, the church appears rather modest, but inside it houses a beautiful iconostasis and historic frescoes that make it one of the most interesting Orthodox churches in the area. Unfortunately, the church was closed when we arrived, so we could only get a glimpse of the interior. But even that was enough to feel the atmosphere of this old place, which has been an important part of Zemun's life for centuries. Nearby stands the Holy Vow Cross, a monument that reflects Zemun's deep Orthodox roots and commemorates events that shaped the history of the area. Today, it blends naturally into the town's landscape, becoming a familiar part of everyday life. What makes this place especially interesting is seeing how ordinary life continues around it. At the nearby tables, people quietly drink coffee, have lunch, and catch up with friends. Children run around the square, while visitors slowly explore the old streets around it. Moments like these are when you truly understand why Zemun is so loved, not only by tourists, but by the people of Belgrade themselves. And now we return to the Danube. Zemun's riverside promenade, known as Zemun Quay, is considered one of the most beautiful places for a walk in all of Belgrade. It stretches for almost 5 kilometers along the riverbank, connecting Old Zemun with the newer parts of the city. During the warmer months, life here truly comes alive. Some people go for a run, others ride bicycles, while many simply sit with a cup of coffee and watch the river go by. Along the promenade, floating restaurants and cafes are moored along the shore, while the Danube is constantly crossed by sightseeing boats, private yachts, and cargo ships. It is hard to believe, but this river connects 10 European countries and has been one of the continent's main transportation routes for centuries. As you walk closer to the water, Zemun reveals a completely different side of itself. The sounds of waves, seagulls, and passing boats become much more noticeable. Stay here for a while and you might spot swans, ducks, and other river birds that have long shared this place with people and become a familiar part of the landscape. It feels like the perfect place to bring our walk to a close. Zemun is a place where history, architecture, and everyday city life come together in a truly unique way. There's no feeling of being in a huge metropolis here, even though the center of Belgrade is only a few minutes away. Perhaps that's why so many people see Zemun not just as one of Belgrade's neighborhoods, but as a place with a unique atmosphere that keeps drawing them back again and again. I hope you enjoyed exploring Zemun with me today. If you did, don't forget to leave a like. It really helps support this project. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications for more journeys like this. See you in the next one.